Welcome to another episode of Two Babies in a Business, where I get to talk and learn from incredible women doing incredible things. I'm really honored to be joined today by Linda. Linda, I don't even know how long we've known each other. I want to say I must have been 20, so almost 20 years. I think,
Oh boy,
could it be that long?
I think they were still living at home
Definitely.
because I was working for PC Alberta at the time,
Yeah.
and you were involved with the Calgary Shaw Constituency Association.
That's right. So yeah, I
Yeah.
was maybe 19 even, maybe not
Yes,
even. So you have watched me grown up quite literally. So I'm
yes.
so excited that you get to be here with me today. But why don't you introduce yourself, especially in terms of what you're up to now?
Oh, well, thank you very much, Christina. And I'm flattered to be here. My name's Linda Johnson. What am I up to now? I'm going to say it out loud. I turned 66 on Saturday, but I don't turn a year older unless there's a parade on my birthday. And there's no parade. So actually I stay 65 this year.
Excellent.
So I am the former MLA for Calgary Glenmore. I was a former cash flow analyst for Dome Petroleum. I am a former assistant to a federal cabinet minister working in his Ottawa office and his Calgary office. But today, my claim to fame is 40 years of marriage, mom of 3 kids who are adults. They cringe when I call them kids, and with their 3 partners. I volunteer a lot in the education sector. So I'm teaching mom of 3 kids herself how to read and to count money. She's in her 40s. I participate with the attendance board with the province of Alberta. What else do I do? I'm on the board of a charter school. I'm involved with the former MLA Association. So pretty busy, but my biggest goal in life right now is to lower my golf handicap. So I try to find time to do.
Cool. Linda, we were talking before we hit record, and you've had such a, I feel like, interesting journey. But one of the things that I loved that we were talking about is that balance of, you know, one, I don't think we ever have a real balance, but two,
Mhm.
that balance in relationship. Married for 40 years is no small feat. That's amazing. And we're just kind of remarking on that. Sometimes, in the partnership, you're at the forefront. Sometimes it's not. What I mean, what's that journey been like?
It's been interesting, because of my age. When I graduated, I actually had a high school guidance counselor say, well, you're just going to get married and have babies. So why should you be looking for work?
Oh,
So, so hopefully women aren't hearing that, and female students aren't hearing that anymore. But, when we began our life as a very traditional, I was going to stay home, take care of the kids. I never thought I would be working full time while we had children at home. But you realize as you become a mom that you have to take care of yourself. I did at one point do some counseling, and that person really helped me in recognizing I was too much of a people pleaser, and you got to take care of yourself. And so, for 12 years I sold Tupperware, and that was on the calendar. I did it. And it caused the children to learn what it was like to have a business in the house. They had to stamp catalogs, they had to pack orders. And husband knew that I was going out that night, so someone better be here to help with the kids. But it helped his relationship with the children. And then I was always a political volunteer. When I moved to Calgary in 79, it was a federal election was on. I went to Harvey Andre's campaign headquarters, and boy, I sound like a historian here, but so I think Al and I have been successful in weaving together whose 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 time needs to be supported when and where. And it's a balance. And my children, they're 2 are in their late 30s and one's in their late 20s. So I had a range, and making sure they got what they needed Sometimes you have to put aside what you want to do that week. And that's what I admire about them today is they're better at setting boundaries than I was. I'm better today. So I'm sorry if I lost my question here.
Oh, I think it makes sense. I mean, what's what is interesting to me too that I don't think we acknowledge enough is when you become a mom, something
Yeah.
does change, right? Like I think some people call it like there's a little bit of loss of identity, but to me it's like you've gained this whole new identity and you either have to figure out how to fit it in to the old identity and or you have to understand okay what falls away and what am I reprioritizing in myself, but I do think it triggers for us all of this, for you, okay, the people pleaser piece, okay, what
Yes.
example is that or how am I finding time for myself? And I look this the same for myself, right? Like I started my business and then a few months later got pregnant.
Yes.
It's amazing what the stress of corporate Calgary would inhibit. And then all of a sudden you don't have that stress. And now, okay, here we are. What are we going to do? And I went, well, I can't walk into my boss's office and say, oh, I'm taking a mat leave because now I'm all of a sudden my own boss.
Right. Right.
Right. So in that moment, it was like, okay, well, we're doing this and I'm doing this and I don't want to give this business up. I just started it. And so for me it was this now transformation of okay, I got to make both work.
Well, and you found a way to do it, and you have a strong partnership with Peter. And what I hope people look for in a partner is someone you can lean on. And sometimes you lean on them, and other times they lean on you.
Yeah.
And so it's, as we've touched on, it's an evolution, it's an ever evolving balance. I kind of dislike the word balance. I operate from a frame of reference that there's certain things that have to happen in my week. You know, we all talk about exercise, and you have a podcast on that as well. But there are pieces that have to take part of my life every week: family content, personal development. The just socializing and finding a way to make that happen takes time, takes effort. But if you're, I was fortunate being interested in politics, in that politics is always there. So I
Right.
could, I was leader on constituency association boards before the kids were born.
Yeah.
Well, then once the kids were born for our household, it was better to be a volunteer, more the secretary of the association than organizing events. But then you can, because it's politics, you can come and go. It's still there. People still know each other. And then you do what's appropriate that fits for me. And I think that's the evolution when I look at Christine's of the world and others, that young people today are better at balancing that out.
Right.
And it takes, you make the decision a whole lot faster than I do.
When you were stepping into, you know, public life, when you guys were,
Yes.
what was that like? What was that discussion like? Right? Like, because that's a big, I feel like, renegotiation. When I worked for
Yeah.
Cindy, she always would talk to me about the renegotiation of the marriage, right? Like
Yeah.
okay, this is how the marriage looks today, and I got to go talk to John because we got to
Yeah.
renegotiate something because now I'm the minister. But
Yes.
like, what was that? What was that journey at your house like?
Well, I had forgotten the story till the kids reminded me of it a few weeks ago, that we took the family to Banff for the weekend and we went to a really nice restaurant for dinner, and we'd spoken to the restaurant that we're having a family conference and please give us the space to do so. The kids tell me to, and the kids knew I was always interested in politics, but the decision was made that I would put my name on the ballot instead of helping people put their name on the ballot.
Right.
The kids thought at first we were getting a divorce. And then the other, to Cindy's point, the other thing we had to be clarify in our house was what was a pink file and what was a blue file.
Okay.
And yes, whatever phrase you want to apply to. It's a traditional way of assigning things.
Right.
But both Al and I are A-type personalities. So we couldn't have someone start calling the neighbor about redoing the fence and then have the other person start calling the neighbor about redoing the fence. So we had several conversations of, this is an A file, this is a pig file, this is a blue file. And so, and then once the file was assigned, you couldn't question how it was being handled,
Oh, I love
which with two A-type personalities, that
that.
was also a learning curve. So, and now it's seamless.
Yeah.
Uh, but for those first few years, uh, and then there's, the other negotiation you go through when you're getting that, when you're putting the name on the ballot is how much of family resources are you going to use? Yes, you fundraise, but you need money to get started.
Yeah.
And so, there, and I don't know if male candidates go through it. I would hope,
Yeah.
knowing the spouses you and I know of male MLAs, I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah.
a discussion. But those are tough couple discussions. And then as you go out once you're elected, and you know, fortunately when we were in the legislature, they had name tags made for the spouses.
Right.
And so that people, but what was interesting that through that is we still chum with an MLA from another party when we were first elected. We're together now, and his wife and my husband ended up hanging out together at all the events because he and I were working the room.
Right.
So it made it easier for them as spouses to be in the room because they would laugh at us more. The
Right.
other, the other negotiation we went through, which we still use today, is whose event is it? And that person decides when we leave.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, so it's more even now, but for the longest time, we were at whatever event because I was invited and there were particular people I needed to speak with.
Yeah.
And I'd say, and you could, you watch your spouse, you respect your spouse enough to pay attention to how they're doing. Are they enjoying themselves or are they
Right.
itching to leave? But that is still our rule of thumb is if it's his event, I smile sweetly until he's ready to leave. So,
That's
because
it.
go on.
Yeah. I think that's so it's interesting because it really does put into perspective that word partnership, right?
Yeah,
That, you know, I am supportive of what you want to do and you're supportive of me and understanding what needs to be accomplished in those spaces. And, because for sure, I think everyone, man, woman,
yes,
whoever can agree that, yeah, you've been to a few places that you probably didn't want to go to and maybe made us think about it or maybe didn't. But like, I think that's really interesting. It reminds me of so Peter got involved in when I was very pregnant, a leadership campaign. You know this one,
right.
and
Yeah,
he had decided that he would have a big backyard gathering and bring these people, and I was fine with it. Right, we've always been a household of gathering, especially
yes.
in our heydays of politics. And right after that event, he took me to the hospital because I was going into labor.
Oh my goodness.
Like it was, and I remember sitting in the corner and I remember him looking at me and checking in, and I'm like, I'm okay. Like, you do your thing, but I'm gonna be here and people can come talk to me. I remember people coming and sitting down and talking to me. And then the next day, it was still too early. So I was in the hospital a couple days and they're stabilizing things. And the next day, that leadership candidate phoned me in my hospital room to apologize for and I didn't even know who it was. Oh, this is so and so. And I'm going, who? Like I'm going, what? Who is
Yes.
this? Like, is this a joke? Like, what is going on? But it's those circumstances too, where it's like Peter was building a network and that was important. And we didn't know what his career looked like at that perspective. He might have been moving more into that direction. And again,
Yes.
I could have made a huge stink. I could have said, we're leaving now.
Yeah, well, that's right. And it's, I think respect is the big thing.
Yeah.
And it's respect of your children's needs. And so as, so the kids were good, two were away at university, one was in high school. And it was awkward for them sometimes, especially the high school student, because during the provincial election, I want to get around the school, and the kid doesn't want to admit that that's their mom, and you have to respect that.
Yeah.
You have to respect that. My middle one, we had a conversation one day. Okay, so now I'm elected. You are not to get in trouble. Just,
Right.
you know, he says, why? What will happen? I said, you don't want to know what's going to happen. And I have good kids. And I
Yeah.
mean, they're adults now, and I owe them that respect to say that they're independent, they're on their own. But, the kids go through that. And then he said, the middle one did say one day, he says, I was laying in bed, just quietly waking up. And there's my mother's voice coming out of the radio. He said, it was weird. And I don't know what it's like today for children of elected and watching the media because I'm 10 years out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12 years out of it. Oh, no, 15, 9 years out of it. I can't, as you and I know, math is hard in Alberta.
It
I
is.
love that phrase. But, you feel for the children as well,
Yeah.
no matter what age they are, that actually some former MLAs I was on a road trip with, and they were telling stories back in the time of Premier Klein and some of those drastic cuts, how
Yeah.
their children were treated in schools. And you just think, that's not fair. That's not right. It's adults making the decision. Don't make the children pay the price.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's interesting, I think, especially for me now, as I look at, okay, what am I going to be when I grow up, and those conversations and friends, where they've either stopped pursuing a passion because they think about the kid, right? What is this going to do
Mhm.
for my child's, whether it's reputation at school, or are they going to be embarrassed of mom or not? Or like, I do think that, again, this like becoming a mom, now you have this new identity, now you're leaning into something different. But I don't know. For me, it's like that I've been many things in my life,
Yes.
but that identity has never been tied to so specifically to someone else, right? Even in a marriage and a partnership, yep, you're
Yes.
partners, but I'm still me, he's still
Yes.
him,
Yeah.
right? Whereas with kids, it's like you're part of them, and you're at this age, I feel like, yeah, they have their individual whatever, but what I'm doing affects them in a
Yes.
big way.
But that still happens even with my children.
Yeah.
Okay. So, occasionally I end up in the media again, and their network makes comments to them. Thankfully, it's all positive right now, so we're okay. But I think as a woman, or as an individual, because you'll see it in your children as they get older, is that who we are today is different than who we're going to be in 5, 10, 15 years. So you speak about growing up, and I really struggled because I did not expect to be out of politics as abruptly and as fiercely as I was dumped.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those that don't know, the 2015 election, I was tied on election night during the NDP swipe
The wave, this,
wave, yeah, and then lost by 6 votes. So then you went around town, yes, I lost. And it took me months to say, yes, I lost, but I only lost by 6.
right.
And and no disrespect to my fellow cabinet ministers, but they lost by hundreds.
Yeah.
Some of them. I only lost by 6.
Yeah.
So it took a while to discover the nugget in there
Right.
that how I was as an MLA worked
Yeah.
because I only lost by 6. Now, so then, and then I've done a couple of went the consulting route since leaving politics. And I wouldn't say I found my 100% niche.
Yeah.
You're open to it. And I think the other thing that we haven't touched on at all is what you learn about yourself from your children.
Hmm.
So one of my children was a model in New York. One of my children is an engineer who could tell you how weather systems work and all the machines and then my youngest makes chocolates. And so what you learn from them as you parent them, because they're all different, and we're both in the business of influencing people to do what we want them to do. One of mine can push my buttons faster than
Yeah.
my father can. But you learn from your children. You learn from their experiences in high school, their experiences going away to university, their experiences looking for work. And my kids keep me young
Yeah.
because they do such a variety of things. And so I think that's the other joy that your guys are what you said going into grade 3. And that opportunity is ahead of you. And I think one of the special days was when our daughter at her wedding said, I look at my parents as friends now and not as parents. So, so that, you know, and when I heard her say that, I thought that's my goal with your siblings as well,
Yeah.
is that no matter how busy I am with my golf game or my volunteer work or the contract work that I do, that if my kids need me, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And they each need us differently too, which you recognize as well.
Yeah. What's one or two of those what have they taught you, your kids? What are those standout moments?
Um, One of them was on Facebook and I didn't like what they were saying. And they said, well, mom, don't read it. I'm thinking, no idea. I'm like, don't like what people are saying about you on Twitter? Don't read it.
Good lesson for a politician.
And then one of them was the diversity of friends. So I think some of that's the reflection of how Calgary's changed
Okay.
with the age range of my children, being invited to events on the nation next door and running into classmates of one of my kids, is just you just feel welcome because you've learned about different communities through the children. And then my eldest actually spoke recently at a Madam Premier event
Okay.
and talking about people deciding to run into politics. And she says, as I told my mom a few weeks ago, the answer can be no, and no is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain.
Yeah.
The answer is no. And I thought, boy, I wish I had known that a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I love those lessons. I mean, and I love your switch in terms of it was only by 6 votes because I do
Yes,
think, and again, there are probably men who are hard on themselves too, but I think as moms, there is this need, we like to justify. No,
right.
but no, but next week I could help you, or no, but maybe come back to me in 3 days, or right, or oh, I failed, right? But no, you didn't
Yes.
fail, right? Like you did this incredible thing that most people are not brave enough to do, and hey, it's like you still go, if it was the Olympics, you still would have got the silver.
That's right. That's right. Thank you.
No, it's really interesting. Okay, my last question.
Okay.
I'm throwing this one out is
Okay.
I'm especially interested in your perspective because I feel like, again, with grown kids and in your experience, we have, a year, the past few years of Barbie movie, of, Taylor Swift taking over everything.
Yes.
We have, I think, more openness in terms of our, LGBTQ conversations.
Mhm.
are we getting it right? Are we moving in the right direction, or are we kind of still missing the mark? Or, again, I feel like you've probably been through quite an evolution of pop culture, like your guidance counselor telling you, don't worry, you're just going to have babies. I feel like I would have hit the floor if my.
So that's a very interesting question in that we're willing to talk about it, but I'm not sure how to move it forward. So I feel for my husband because, and I feel for my dad
Oh,
that they were socialized, brought up the way they were, and they're not aware of how some people react.
right.
Just like I'm not aware as white Anglo-Saxon Canadian of
Yeah.
my privilege until people started pointing it out to me.
Yeah.
So I think the difficulty to move the conversation forward is sometimes people want to say you're bad and you need to apologize. I don't know if you need to apologize. You need to acknowledge this is how things were
Yeah.
and how in my day to day I I act in such a way to broaden society, to
Yeah.
be a more tolerant position, a person. And so I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
The awareness is helpful, but it creates discomfort because how do you have the conversation without making people feel bad about things they've done in the past? I mean, during the whole grave residential school
Yeah.
conversation, as we learn more and more about that, I'm thinking, but I think the last school closed in 1979. I finished university in 1979, and I can't say I knew anything about them.
Yeah.
And I think there was one residential school just down the road from my home in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So, the awareness is powerful,
Yeah.
the steps forward. And I think the other thing is, as we talk about these changes in society, is I personally can't open every file.
Right.
So I have a family connection to the LGBT community. I am, through my church, taking steps. I'm having conversations at a political level here in Alberta about what that means and who's impacted by government decisions.
Right.
That's the file I'm focused on. And then someone else is going to be focused on the Indigenous file, and someone else is going to be focused on women and equality and school enrollments and corporate Calgary and closing the income gap between men and women. Um, you have to pick your lane,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean you have to stay in that lane for your whole life.
Well, and I think even it goes back to that. I love that, no is a complete sentence, right?
Friends, yes,
Hey, just because I'm not involved in this
yes,
doesn't mean, just because I can't, bring it to my 7-year-olds, just because I can't go to every birthday party that you're invited to,
right,
right?
yes,
Doesn't mean I don't like that kid or I don't, right? Like there
yes.
is this interesting piece where I still think as I don't even think it's women. I think it's just this day and age where we feel like we need to, I love this, open the file or be involved in every file to show, yeah, I care about this and I'm aware of this. And, to me, it's that openness to have conversation, awareness, and being
Mhm.
able to just acknowledge when you don't. A funny example, maybe not funny, but one of my boys had his toenails painted. And
Yeah.
again, so my dad, and you think about, I love what you said about your dad and husband. That is not something that a 65-year-old man
Yes,
would have any awareness that a 7-year-old little boy is going to be into that.
right,
There's no, right? There's no, it's just that's a girl thing, right? And
yes,
that's not because my dad is a terrible person. It's not
No, and
because,
I was thinking, I hope I didn't make my husband and my dad sound like terrible people. They're very
no.
open-minded gentlemen. Yeah.
Right? And my dad, I think everyone who knows my dad knows he's very open. I've brought over the gamut of whether it was boyfriends or friends, and he was always the first, when Peter showed up at our house on his motorbike and Mr. Cool and my mom was horrified. My dad was like, "This guy's cool. We like this guy." Right? My dad's
Yeah,
always open, but it took, at the time, I want to say maybe he was 5. It took my 5-year-old telling his grandpa in a kind way because he knows his grandpa loves him. Oh no, like look, and he got my dad's phone and was showing him, look at this football player. He paints his nails before every game because that's his good luck thing that he does.
yes,
And all of a sudden my dad's perspective goes, "Oh, that's cool. Everyone does that now. I had no idea, right?
that's
It's
right.
that openness to have those conversations. I think sometimes we get afraid
Right.
but it's true. I think that's what I'm learning from my kids is like, it's okay to just be aware and have a conversation and admit, right, my dad, I had no idea that toenail painting was a thing, but thank you. And, then he's going over to his house next time and says, Grandpa, I'm going to paint your toes now. And dad's like, okay, let's do it.
That's right. And I think that's back to my point about learning about life from your children, is
Yeah,
look what your grandfather's learning from your kids. You
totally.
know, I think the other thing you touch on is not opening every file and being involved in every issue. It's finding which person in your network is the person that speaks on this issue or that issue and supporting them when they post in social media. So I post pretty well about literacy. So when some friends my friends know that that's my bag, that's my passion item. So when your passion item about AI and media training show up, to support that, because I don't have to worry about that file because Christina and Peter are on it, right? And recognizing that.
I think too, that goes back to this whole, women supporting women, moms supporting. Like, it's like, again, I know my friend Melba down the street, she makes amazing soap. And when I need soap, I go to Melba and it's organic and great for my skin.
Right.
Right? Like it's those, okay, yeah, you've got that file. I know when to contact you, or, even we're talking about Patty when we
Yeah.
jumped on this call. It's like, I know if I have a client looking for someone who's great at governance, that's Patty. I don't need to hold that file. She's got
Right.
that file. Yeah. No, I
And
love that.
I think that's the evolution for even the men in our lives is that, on that, my wife's better at that. On this, I'm better at that. And it's been fun watching how things change. And, I've got another 30, 40 years. We'll see what changes even more.
Yeah. I love that. I'm gonna ask myself, what's my file? What's my
Is this a file I have to pick up? And you don't have to pick them all up.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Linda, thank you. Thanks for this
Thank
conversation.
you,
Thanks for catching
Christina.
up. I feel
Yeah,
like,
yes.
again, all these relationships that, were born out of, right, for the politics, volunteering, whatever, and,
Mhm. Well,
look,
I think the fun of the political relationships is because politics carries on. Like I don't see the mums I was on school council with,
right.
but you run into your political contacts over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
That's
small world.
those people are always the ones I use as my passport references because they're like,
Yes.
"See, I have known you forever. So you're, even Josh Troutau, he's
Oh,
my
there you go.
my go-to reference because it's like I've known him longer than my husband.
I've known Dave Hancock longer than my husband.
Right.
There
There you
you
go.
go. Jim Prentice too. Bless his soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where, I mean, that's Peter and I met at a Jim Prentice membership of drive.
My goodness.
Yeah, Frank
And we
Hickey's
had that
awesome.
car ride to Edmonton and back.
Yeah, there you go.
Here we go. Well, thank you very much, Christina. Give my best to Peter and the boys.
I
And
will.
I'm sure we'll run into each other during Stampede.
You bet. Thanks, Linda.
Okay.
Thanks for listening in today to another incredible journey of a mom who's just like you, trying to balance it all. I'm encouraging you to join our community online. It's TBAAB, Two Babies in a Business, .circle.so. That's TBAAB.circle.so. Join in the community, share your story, learn from other women. I'm so looking forward to seeing you there.